Hey, Waylon.
Hey, Janice.
So, in the Academy, we learn how to write, we learn how to find our voice and how to share it. But today, I want to actually talk to you about the business of writing as it pertains to Elephant Journal. We
Please.
are artisans, but we're also looking to connect with readers. And to do that, we actually have to understand who we're reaching, who we're talking to, and how we can add value to those people with our voices and vulnerability. So, I'm hoping you can shed some light on the elephant readership. Who is the readership in 2021, and how has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a complicated question. My response to that is, when I started, I never wanted a demographic. I think demographics, even that term is sort of sales oriented.
It
And
is.
I wanted, our mission is to be beyond the choir. So literally our mission is to talk to the choir because it's important for the choir to care and to be passionate. And, the choir gets depressed and defeated about climate change or equity or whatever it is, mindfulness. If you're a parent, you start getting frustrated and stressed and you're like, what do I do? And during a pandemic or any time. But then it's beyond the choir, because I always say, we're not trying to like preach about cycling to cyclists. We're trying to talk about the joys of cycling to people who drive their SUV to go pick up their mail or whatever, so it's everyone. And I always tried to design the magazine. We were a print magazine, as I'm sure you know, back in the day. So my grandma could read it. And, I think we get pegged in this sort of like 25 to 45 white female readership. But luckily our readership and our writership are quite healthfully diverse. And of course, we always need and want more diversity for that community to be more interesting and more true to our mission.
We do have a media kit, which I noticed, and
Yeah,
there are some metrics in there. So, can you just share what is in there for us in case some of our writers haven't seen it? And that
yeah.
includes things like age, income, interest, gender. And where did that data come from? When was that data?
I mean, as the CEO, founder, and I did sales of ads when it was a print magazine. I had almost no hand in that media kit. I'm not in sales. When I have looked at our various media kits over the years, I both appreciate that they're trying to quantify who we are. So sales folks. So, we have a really high bar, and I'm really proud of our salespeople. Like, they don't take ads they don't like. We do take ads we're not 100% on, because, if you want to pick perfect businesses to support a independent small media company, you're not going to find any. Patagonia makes its stuff overseas. They have an entire site dedicated to their immense carbon footprint, which is awesome. But like, there's no perfect business. But they have a higher bar than frankly I would have. If I were in sales, I would say, I've always said I want ads from like the worst possible car company, like Hummer. As long as we can have articles on the exact same page that criticize gas guzzling habits, or that even better, criticize and then educate and inspire, hopefully. But so honestly, I don't know the media kit that well, but I can't talk about sales. They're female led. There's 4 women on the crew. There's no boys, no men. And I just met with them this morning, and they're pretty kick-ass and hardworking, and hopefully well compensated, and they pay for about 40% of Elephant. So their hard work, those 4 women, their hard work not only pays for themselves, but pays for half 40% of what we do. And we're relatively broke. People always have this idea that elephant sort of gets the worst of both worlds. I feel like sometimes, where people think, oh, it's so small compared to Instagram. And yet if you post an article on elephant, you might get 4,000 readers, you might get 400 shares, you might whatever, and we'll pay the top writers. You've been paid
Yep.
sometimes. And on the other hand, we're huge. So then they think, oh, elephant is the man and it's awful. And we're just like, literally every dollar we make, we want to pay our staff and our writers and our platform. The platform means the servers and the design and upkeep.
And I feel like as writers, one of our jobs is actually to help bring people to the platform and
Mm,
keep the circle going. So our
exactly.
media kit says that we have 5 to 7 million readers a month. Are those unique readers? And
Yeah, so that media kit needs to be updated because basically I think we're at like 2 million readers a month. 10 years ago, we were at 30 or 25 million unique readers a month.
okay,
So what happened in those 5 years, which I love talking about this stuff. Facebook bought Instagram, and every single magazine and or website or even bloggers, remember mommy bloggers and bloggers and it was a whole culture. I would say probably 95% of it is gone and dead, and it's moved to Instagram, which Zuckerberg owns and which uses your data and even your messages and pays you nothing except for what you can make through it indirectly. So, we've survived, but we're definitely a lot smaller. We've had to get through this bottleneck of surviving, and I'm proud of that. But it's also frustrating because I've done this for 18 years and we want to fight climate change and help create a more enlightened society that has some room for disagreement without hating each other. And obviously we all need practice at that, but that's a mission I feel like is worth devoting my life to. And some of our staff, most of our staff who've stuck around feel that way. But yeah, I think we're at like 2 million readers a month right now. Sorry, long answers.
that was a great answer. So I think as writers, what we want, at least speaking for myself, what I want is for people to click through the article and read it, connect to it, have an emotional response to it, react to it, share it, and feel something when they read it. So part of that is actually getting that click in the first place.
Yeah.
How many of those readers are subscribers versus social media users at this point?
Wait, what? What was
How
that?
many of those readers are subscribers versus social media users? So what I'm actually asking is, are we writing to people that are kind of casually scrolling by Facebook and clicking on something that is clickbait, or are we
Yeah.
writing to people that are subscribing and are really already bought into that mission?
Yeah, yes and no on both. So 2 million readers go to the website every month. So we're not adding our social media following to that number. Our social media following is huge. Is probably like 16 million, 15 million unique, or not unique, 16 million fans across Twitter, Facebook, where most of those millions come from, and Instagram, and maybe you could add our newsletter to that. But no, we have 2 million people come to the website. Probably 500,000 of that are people who click in and click out. It's called a bounce. 500,000 of that is probably people who come once all month. 500,000 of that is probably people who read multiple articles. 500,000 of that may be people who read and share and are more active. But yeah, we only have like paid subscribers. I mean, I could get that exact number for you if we do a description or comment, but I think it's probably like 10,000 paid subscribers. I mean, it's like the top of the little iceberg, are people who actually read enough that they say, wow, over time, they say, wow, this is like this, maybe I want this to be a part of my life, or I want to read, 4 or 5 articles a day, not just 3. And I will get my, I'll get my credit card out, I'll take it out, I'll enter it in, and it's $3 a month or whatever it is. And that's so helpful when people are inspired to do that, because that's the money that we use for the other 40%. So I said 40% sales, 40% subscribers. And I'm so proud of that, because if we could be 80% subscribers and 10% sales, we would have zero responsibility, which we basically already feel like we have because we have no investors, we have no financial backing, but we would have zero responsibility to anyone other than our mission. Even with our readers, and we ran into this recently with our readers and our writers, there's going to be friction sometimes.
Sure.
Because we're writing about abortion, we're writing about every controversial topic. trauma, sexual assault, equity, privilege, veganism. Like every single article is like a landmine for 5% of our readership. So that's why part of our mission is like, and you were a wonderful example of that in the recent time, is, we can come face to face, we can agree and disagree, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world.
Correct.
And I think people are delighted when they discover that, because we're kind of used to like, oh, if we disagree, I have to unfollow you. That's the culture that Facebook is foisting upon this world, and Twitter.
This is an aside from the business questions, but on my lone parenting article, which circulates every couple of weeks, there's always controversial opinions put on the Facebook posts, and there's people who hate that article. Somebody recently said it should be taken down,
right?
Because she was super triggered by it. And then I actually responded to her and we had a dialogue, and it turned out that that wasn't the case. She just felt like her voice wasn't being heard. And great that there is a platform where everybody can have their voice heard. Yeah. And I will often tell people, especially on that parenting article, I don't speak from the place of being a single parent. I'm a lone parent. I don't speak from the place of being a married parent. So submit something. Elephant might publish it.
Well, and also even I love that. I had 2 single parents or 2 alone parents or 2. No 2 are alike. They have totally different experiences. So you're not standing up on a soapbox claiming to speak for all blah, blah, blah.
Definitely not.
You're not standing on a soapbox speaking from your own voice. And that is our go-to response, but we actually mean it. Like, oh, you hate Biden? Good for you. Explain why. And if it's more than a meme and more than just hate, we'll publish it. Like, I invited so many Trump MAGA commenters to write, because I was like, hey, I would love to hear a thoughtful person's perspective on how they could support someone like Trump, because my father's a Republican, but I view Republicanism, which I don't agree with generally, very different from Trumpism. How do you support that? I would love to have a genuine insight into that, because I feel like after 4 years of that, 5 years, including the campaign, I don't have a lot of insight into it. I've talked with Trump supporters a lot, but usually you try to talk about what you have in common, instead of being like, oh, you're, anyway, I keep going off track, but.
So good.
But yeah, we actually want to give a platform to anyone who has any opinion that is or view or experience that is a little bit more grounded than just hate or prejudice. If they can unpack that and talk about their experience, there's probably a mix of neurosis and something helpful in there, just like all of us, right? Like when you're in an argument with your lover or your loved one or your kid or your friend, there's a mix of neurosis, prejudice, like preconceived thought, and goodness. Like you actually have a story that needs some empathy, probably.
So we're really talking to a mindful and committed audience, ideally. Do we know how many people are monthly subscribers versus lifetime subscribers? I know we have that option.
I don't. And I think even my answer, and again, I can get back to you with the answer, but the fact that the CEO doesn't know basic numbers of his own business really speaks to the fact that like we are not financially driven. I do not obsess over these numbers. What I obsess over, and I am, as my staff can relay, is I want to get raises to everybody. We pay people a minimum, editors, of $20 an hour, plus benefits if they're on salary in the US, plus some stipends and stuff if they're overseas to make up for not being in the US. And most people make well over that. Some well over that. There's editors who make, is personal in some ways, but like 50% more than that. And they've only been here a couple years. But I grew up really poor, and I spent up until 37, I never had a credit card. My debit card would bounce half the time when I would get groceries. And living in half the places in the US, you can't survive very well on 15, let alone, or 20, let alone $15 an hour. So I do want money, and I do want clicks, but it's not for me. I'm not driving like my Maserati around town listening to, DJ Khaled or whatever. We want to pay people more. And my goal there isn't just altruistic. It's like people you pay well stick around. It is so expensive to lose people. And I just had this argument or discussion with my fiance's mom. She was like, this minimum wage thing, it's going to be bad for small businesses. And I'm like, look, we pay people more than that minimum. And the more I can pay people, as long as they're doing a decent job, the longer they're going to stay. And that saves elephants so much money. And then we can use more of those subscriber dollars and sales dollars to pay people more. And, our goal is to pay thousands of writers a week.
The writers. Yes.
Yeah. We pay out of, of course, but out of our own pocket to writers. Our goal is to create a social media platform where, kind of like Patreon or something, which didn't exist when we had this idea, where this is how slow moving we are, because we have one developer, and we've only had one developer for 5 years? Before then, we didn't even have a developer. We are such a duct tape and, shoestring and, gauze and Band-Aids outfit. We are trying to create a platform where thousands of writers a week, like on Etsy or whatever, could make a part-time healthy living, like Uber, like any kind of gig job, but they could do it sharing their voice and hopefully being of benefit.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that app. Who is on there? How many people are on there? And what is the benefit of the app versus the newsletter versus
right
website versus any other entry point for?
Yeah. I clearly should have had the questions ahead of time, because I am not prepared for any of these questions. But I will say the app is at most 20,000 people have downloaded the app. So it's puny. Okay. But I will say that those who use the app, and I can hear Brian, who created the app, with William crying because my numbers are probably wildly off, but people who use the app are by far the most active, because once they're in the app, they're logged in automatically and they engage in comments and sharing, and they're amazing, wonderful users. So even if it's a very small percentage, it's incredibly powerful. So one of our main goals, aside from the newsletter, which Facebook hasn't yet owned or bought, is to promote the app, because while the app is kind of controlled by Apple and the newsletter is controlled by Google, big tech is everywhere. They're independent from Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, which is all Facebook. So what was the other question other than numbers?
Well, how does that reader differ?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I touched on that, but they're by far the most active and involved and kind of quality readers, like in-depth readers. They're not casual readers. Same with the newsletter. People who choose to subscribe to the newsletter or an alert kind of thing on their phone. Do you get that?
I get all the things.
Yeah, we get little text messages sometimes. We only send out a couple. We're super inconsistent because we don't want to bombard people, but because it's in their phone. But yeah, those people who choose to get those things are the most involved. And if we could have more of them, we would be sitting pretty. We would be paying 100 writers a week instead of whatever it is, 12 writers a week.
You mentioned that you have 60 Facebook pages.
Yeah, probably more.
What is the benefit of that? But more importantly, because I go on and I snag screenshots of where my articles are actually being shared. So can you share kind of what those top pages are by likes, in terms of where can the writers find content where the most people are seeing it?
Yeah, we actually have a page on Elephant that I can also send you the link for the description or blog or whatever, that lists all the pages by popularity for that anyone can see. But so yeah, there's a lot there. So why do we have that? So when we first started, Facebook was kind of a brand new thing. We've been around since 2002. When we first started online, I looked at all the media models, and Huffington Post with Ariana Huffington was explosive. And I looked at what they're doing. They're doing Huffington Post Green, Huffington Post Women, Huffington Post Politics, Huffington Post, whatever. and business. And so I looked at that and I said, okay, elephant family, elephant adventure, elephant, conscious consumerism. We had all kinds of different pages. Elephant meditations. I'm not spiritual, I just practice being a good person. Elephant journal is our main page on Facebook. Elephant love and relationships and loneliness. So we have probably more like 75, but we say 60 because the last 15 of them are like Elephant Denver. If you go to Elephant Denver,
we're deep
like
within the family.
One person's clicked on anything in the last few years. We have, Elephant Vegan. We have Animals Are People Too. We have tons of pages I enjoy. Mindful Heroes, and Mindful Travel, Mindful Gentlemen, which we started when we saw that like 90% of our readers and writers were women. And there was a sort of casual sexism in a lot of articles. And we wanted, we want boys and men to be good people too. So we wanted to try to, encourage them to write and to read. But so we kind of started all those verticals. And for 7 long, hard years, when it was basically me on staff, not really paid or well paid, all those years. And I think Lindsay, and then we had like literally a volunteer web designer guy Colin, who created half of Elephant, God bless him, who volunteered from a Twitter tweet that I put out being like, can anyone help? And he volunteered for like 5 years until I started paying him in Scotland. And I just grew all these pages, and we started growing faster than Huffington Post. We were explosively huge. I mean, and is hard to remember. I know you probably do, but most folks don't remember when Facebook was actually kind of generally considered a good force for the world, and actually a great place to go to read news, like journalism, like facts, not mainstream media, not bullshit news, but like actual quality news. And so, we would write about climate change and it would be relatively popular. We would write about climbing, relatively popular. We would write around food, relatively popular. Now we're kind of stuck in the silo of Facebook basically lets our readers see trauma, empath, narcissist, love, relationships. And there's probably one other thing, maybe astrology. None of which are really fundamental to our mission. I mean, love, relationships, and loneliness is fundamental to our mission. Trauma is important. Astrology, dare I say, has nothing to do with Elephant. A couple of fun astrology posts, great. Fun or meaningful, great. But it's not fundamental to our mission in the way that, say, saving the whole planet or all the species on it might be. And but no one sees those articles. So it's hard. So for many years, for 7 years, we grew, 25 million readers. And then Facebook started ratcheting down the algorithms to try to make more money. It's not some sinister thing. I don't hate Facebook because I'm a Facebook hater. They just tried to, make even more money. They were already making many billions, but they wanted more. That's what capitalism does. Once you're public, you need to grow. And that's what Patagonia and other small giants rejected. So there's a book for anyone who considers yourself a mindful business person or interested in that called Small Giants. And I've interviewed the author, Bo Burlingham. I highly recommend it. Small giants are companies that try not to grow, but try to focus on their mission and being of benefit and paying their people well and having a good staff culture. How was that?
That was great.
Okay.
So where do we find the list of those top pages?
I'll find that link. Lindsay will have it. I've had it open, but I haven't bookmarked it because, the numbers are changing all the time. But basically, Elephant Journal, Elephant Love and Relationships and Loneliness, Elephant Meditation, I'm not spiritual, I just practice being a good person, The Mindful Life, which is our slogan, and maybe 1 or 2 other pages are relatively sizable. But even those these days are puny. Our top hits on Elephant used to be more than 100 readers per moment. That's how we measured a hit. We called that a single, like in baseball. And if it was more than 200 readers a moment, we called it a double. A triple would be 300, 400 would be a home run. And then we even had like a grand slam that was probably like 800 or something. Now, our biggest hit at any given time is probably 20.
Oh, wow.
The number 2 hit will be 8. And that's the effect of Facebook. But Facebook gets a lot of criticism. We have to remember Instagram is far worse than Facebook because it basically doesn't allow links. Every single blogger in the world disappeared 5 years ago and reappeared on Instagram. It is now the platform for humanity to share the most meaningful and meaningless things that they want to share. You know, both. Like, look at me, or it could be something totally profound, and you can read amazing stuff on Instagram. And I'm not saying the whole community sucks. The community doesn't suck, but the fact that it's controlled by a billionaire kind of world that's just looking for profits, with morals being a very, very much a backseat, is incredibly heartbreaking.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we do have a base of subscribers that looks to be around 20,000. And then we've got some app users that, I'm sorry, app users are 20,000, about 85,000 on the newsletter. But then the rest of our click-throughs are actually coming through the social media giants. Is that accurate?
Yeah, probably most of the clicks at any given time come from Facebook. Facebook is far bigger. That's why I'm saying Instagram's even worse. Instagram basically doesn't allow links. You can have a link in your bio, you can have a swipe up in your stories, but stories are seen by a small percentage of your followers or fans that you've worked hard to create. Instagram didn't do any of that work. They created some of the platform. And yeah, newsletter, we used to have well over 500,000. It was growing every day, but we got rid of most of those because people don't open up their email. Who here wants more emails? Everyone has way too many emails.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is like, it's hard out here for a, you know, it's really hard to connect with readers. And so when we get accused of clickbait, you're like, well, you know, number one, the term means you're tricking someone actively. So if I'm saying, click on this naked photo of whoever, and you click in and it's a vegan recipe, yeah, that's clickbait. But if we're trying to make a title connect with someone, and that title still reflects the article, no matter how obnoxious that title may be to the author, and that's another worthwhile subject, we are trying to get people to read your darn article. And your darn article may not be that sexy or that clicky or that whatever. And we are just shouting through the algorithm, like, read, because we put an hour of work into every edit on average. You put hours of work or half an hour. You know, I put up blogs that are 10 minutes long, 2 hours long, you know, the whole range. If I'm blogging up a video, it's like 10 minutes. Yo, check out this video.
And that fundamentally is why I'm asking these questions, because we are pouring our heart and our voice and our soul into creating this content, which sometimes falls completely flat, even though we're getting shared. And I wanted to understand who's reading it, how they're getting there. Is this something that's actually getting sort of shut out by Facebook? Is this something that we can do as writers to actually help ourselves? Is there certain topics that we should be writing? Are we really writing to people that are actually fundamentally just cruising by and clicking, or are we writing to that core mindful audience? And how do we get seen through the clutter of all this? That's the $1 million question, Waylon.
Yeah, so we have, as you know, because you're a mentor and a graduate, we have Elephant Academy where we teach how to get through that clutter. And remember, we got to 25 million readers a month as independent media with $0 backing us. Like, at any given time, we are 1 month away from going out of business. So if people want to boycott and crush Elephant, here we are. It's not hard. If you want to boycott and crush Instagram, good luck.
It's true. It's true. But I feel like the writers are part of the community in that
you guys are the stars of the community.
Absolutely. And we're typically quite loyal to the community. And so how do we help you, and how do we help ourselves to get our stuff read?
Yeah. And yeah, I always shake my hand at the word loyal because Trump used it so much. Like, I don't even expect people to be loyal. We have to earn it. And if people want to leave, I honestly don't wish them ill. Like, you should leave. Like, if you want to leave, like, go to Medium, like, try it out, like, see what is hard out here. As independent media, there's so little left. But yeah, there was so much in your question. So basically, yeah, our best editors, and we've talked about this, you as a writer, which editor to work with, our best editors are active in sharing your articles to some of our small pages. So let's say you put up a article about traveling with your child and trying to be vegan while doing it or something. So I'm just trying to like put it into different buckets. So
My child's going to boycott that, so it will never get written. But
yeah, well, that could be the article. Like, let's be vegan while we travel and be light on the planet. And my kid hated it. That would be a great article. My kid refused. That would be great because you're talking about diets and preferences and climate change and animal compassion and all these things. Travel. So we would share that to Mindful Travel on Facebook. We would share it to vegan, elephant vegan and vegetarian on Facebook. We would share it to animals or people too on Facebook. We would share it to parenting, elephant family, and we would share it to elephant recipes, elephant food. So that's 6 pages right there. Those are small pages and your article would stay on that page. It would not be deleted from any of those pages. We would also, if we liked the article, this is at our discretion, share it to, say, Elephant Journal, the main page, or I'm not spiritual, I'm trying to be a good person. We would share it to a big page. And generally, if we're going to spend an hour of our time plus editing an article that we like, we're going to try to get it to hit, because also the editors get judged or rewarded based on kind of how well they're doing with authors. So, you know, we look and we encourage editors to share. We're not like, editors, you can be a dick to any writer you want at any time, excuse my French, but you know, we want editors to support writers, and generally we don't have to encourage that, but we still want to keep an eye on that. Editors want to share writers. So then we share it to a main page, and as you and others have noticed or maybe been confused about, we will put your article on the main page and okay, and then we're watching it and we're like, okay, it has 1 reader, okay, it has 2 readers, and then 5 minutes later it's at 4 readers. Oh, now it's at 2, now it's at 0. That's your like typical Facebook share on a huge page with millions of fans, you know, or 1 million plus. So it's beyond frustrating, and we have a really low bar for what we expect from Facebook. But sometimes, as you know, like with the article you referred to, it's at 2 readers, it's at 4 readers, it's at 8, 12, 30.
That has cranked up 1,000 an hour in December and January.
Right. So the measure on the Facebook moment thing would be like, it would probably reach like 20 or 30, and that would equal 1,000 in the hour. So that's wonderful. And we also need that, because 0.1% of those people might subscribe, or it might be part of their 3 article journey to running into our pay gate, as opposed to a paywall. Like, we let people in, they can read 3 articles, but then we say, hey, thanks for reading so much elephant. Please support so that we can afford to pay our editors and writers.
And in that front, can you actually explain a bit about that subscriber love button that's on the ecosystem? How do we get that? How do we know if that happens? It's a mystery. So can you just
I mean, there's no direct lever on that one. You can directly affect sharing, but not completely, right? Readers are going to share, mostly you can't affect it. Readers are going to share what they share, but you can share to a bunch of pages, and yeah, that'll change the. So basically, I thought one day I was reading about this is like 10 years ago now, but I was reading about I can't even remember the name of it, but I was reading about this site that there was a whole generation of designers who were suddenly out of work because everything had gone digital. Magazines were gone, brochures were gone. So this website said to these designers who are out of work and amazing artists, right? Some of them, a lot of them, I said, why don't you not only stop designing stuff that doesn't exist and you're broke, but design stuff that you love, like make art, and we'll put it on t-shirts and other stuff. And then our viewers will bid on the ones they want. They'll say, oh, I want that t-shirt. If it gets made, I'll pay $35 for that t-shirt, including shipping. And then you get mailed the shirt if enough people put $35 in. If it doesn't get to that threshold, everyone gets their money back. So I looked at that and I said, wow, we have a whole generation of writers, bloggers, journalists. My dad was a journalist at Rocky Mountain News. 188-year-old paper, gone. And now he's reduced to being like, you know, a hack journalist looking for, he's a better journalist than I am, you know? So it's tough. And we've seen the effect of journalism being weakened with in the kind of Trump era and fake news era. So, so anyway, I was like, we could apply that basic logic to writers. We could offer thousands of writers. That's why the vision is thousands, not, I have no interest in paying 12 writers a month. I want to pay 12,000 writers a week. And, you know, because writers deserve to be paid. And again, you know, Instagram could, like YouTube, create a paid model. They should, where, you know, their elite users get paid something. But then again, it's going to be influencers generally, and influencers often aren't writing the meaningful stuff. Many of them do, some of them do, but a lot of them are just like, look at me, you know. But anyway, so yeah, where was I?
You're talking about subscriber love.
Yeah, so subscriber love is basically like how many people, readers, made this article one of their 3 articles or 4 articles in their journey to subscribing. So it doesn't mean someone subscribed because of your article, but it means that I read Janis's article, and then I read Joe's article, and then I read Samantha's article, and then I tried to read Winifred's article, and I ran into the pay gate, and I decided to subscribe. So it's not really in your control, but it means your article was interesting and or quality enough to keep them in the ecosystem. That's why it's called ecosystem. We actually want to create an ecosystem where writer writes, readers read and share, writer shares, editors share, and then writers get paid. Elephant gets paid. Readers can read and subscribe and share and create a better world through all of that. It's like very simple. And I'm sure if I had like 1,000 developers, we could do it today, but we have 1.
So how do we as writers help ourselves? So how do we get those retweets and reshares? How do we see that our article has been put on those Facebook pages? How do we actually become active participants in that ecosystem in a way that helps us get paid, helps us actually create content that's of benefit? Because I can sit here and spend 6 hours writing an article that 200 people see, and that's not of benefit. I need thousands of people to see that. So my goal is to help myself and help you and create that ecosystem where I can get paid, I can have my voice heard, I can generate those comments. How do we do that?
Yeah, it's I just want to show you my last article I put up has, and you know, again, I'm the editor. Yeah, it has a 0.5 on the ecosystem. I shared it to 6 or 7 pages and Twitter, and we're authenticated on Twitter, and we have you know, 100,000 followers. It has 24 readers on it. So, you know, number one, the answer that no business would ever give you that had a board or had financial backers is, 5 years ago, I was one of the best. And over the course of the last 10 years, I've been one of the best at creating a website with no money, with huge readership, rocking social media. It's hard work. There's no magic answer, but I've been one of the best, and trying to do it authentically without, you know, being too clickbaity about it. And I would say I no longer am one of the best, because Facebook is so tight right now. The answer that no website on earth, except for maybe Elephant, will give you is, there's no way. The Death Star is here, and there's a couple rebels running around in their like white pajamas, you know? And the only hope is like, maybe we'll learn Jedi, whatever, which is the ecosystem, is that we could actually band together. The idea of the ecosystem is that, like a gathering storm, we could all working together create something together. And that's why it breaks my heart that everyone, including my fiance, no one blogs on Elephant that I know. So those who do write on Elephant, thank you. And I'm not being judgy. It's our job to make it easier for people to write on Elephant in any language. Her first language is not English, which is part of the issue there. But, you know, people are really trained to write on Instagram. People are really trained to write on Facebook or Twitter. You know, are you mad about the Governor Andrew Cuomo thing, or do you have an opinion? You post on Twitter. Do you have a thought about the NBA game being a super spreader event, the All-Star game last night with players from all over the US and Canada? Put it on Twitter. You're not going to put it on independent media. You're not going to put it on your own blog, because if you think getting readers on Elephant is hard, try getting it on your own blog.
Yeah.
It's brutal. So we have a full-time staff working for our writers, and we still barely can do it. So the number one answer is we have a lot of strength, and we still can. It's tough. We don't have a clue. We do have a craft, and that craft is, as you know, like with the retail shop analogy, you know, you have a title that's clear but a little bit mysterious. You have a, you know, an image that gives you a window into what it's about, but maybe isn't literal. You have a description that is kind of fun and spicy, like a sandwich board. And then you hope for the best. But the practical answer is writers, number one, I always say to writers, be consistent. If you write once, it's like, oh, I bought a lottery ticket. Why didn't I win? I'm so pissed. I always say to people, like, one of my best friends is a major video blogger. He never writes on Elephant. And I'm like, this is crazy, dude. You have a huge following. You're good at social media. You would win Elephant ecosystem. And by when, I mean placing one of the top 12, not necessarily number 1 or 2. Like, guaranteed once a month you would win. And he's like, whatever. And I'm like, you would get 5% more fans to your YouTube channel because people would click through and find out about you. There's a whole audience that can find out about you. He's like, whatever. So, you know, be consistent is number one. If you're right once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever you decide on, be consistent, because as you know, you have a lot of followers, I'm sure, on Elephant.
I could have more.
Huh?
I could have more.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty brand new function on Elephant. That's only been around for a year or something. So as we go, we're developing more, you know, things that will help writers and readers. And so that being consistent helps you build up followers and build up, you know, people are like, oh, whatever, an article about whatever. And then they see you again the next week. And then they, oh, at some point, you know, it's like you hear about a play downtown in non-COVID times. You might hear about it 5 times before you go.
It's on average, it's 12 to 15 times before somebody takes action on a marketing message. So
and on average, people expect it to be once.
Yeah.
What, you know, I put up an article, people make such a big deal of their first article on Elephant. I'm like, they're like, what should I write about? Who should I write to? I'm like, who cares? Write about what you care about and what you know and what you think would be helpful. That's always my answer. And I mean it, because if you're writing to a demographic, we all know writers on Elephant who do that. If you're writing to a particular, if you're trying to imitate hit articles, you might win the ecosystem, but is it really that helpful or meaningful? I mean, I don't know. We're not paying enough for people to game Elephant in that way. I think it's silly. On the other hand, you do want people to read your thing.
We do.
So I'm sympathetic to that too. I don't have big enemies in terms of like, oh, that's bad. But yeah, I think you put up your article, you get a link in your email back, you see the article immediately if it's on Instant. Personally, I would recommend folks write on the Instant platform, and then an editor will look. People like you who are consistent columnists may have a dedicated editor, and I think that's also awesome. But for me personally, I just want to like get it up and share it. So once it's up, I want to share it to my Facebook, to Twitter, to whatever. And then I'll probably honestly DM it to like 20 different people who I feel like would have some connection. So if it's a genuine thing, I would say, hey, if so inspired, please check this article out. And if you like it, share it. It's about, and I put something in there personal, like it's about, you know, the frustration of not being able to travel in the pandemic. I know you're a traveler, teacher, chef, like I'm thinking of my friend Peggy, who also never writes on Elephant. And, you know, so I would do that to like 20 people. And then I would do that on Facebook. And I would try to be a mix of like copy paste and also a little bit genuine, but short. You can do it quickly and be genuine. We all know that from texting our friends. Hey, want to go see a movie? Want to meet at farmer's market? You can copy paste, but be kind of but you only send it to people you actually want to go to farmers market with. So that's kind of what you do. And then I encourage every writer to have their own website, their own blog, their own newsletter, and then you can put the article there. You should put every article you put on Elephant on your own website because you own it. People are always like, who owns it? I'm like, well, it's in writer guidelines, but you own it. We have use rights. And, you know, people occasionally request that their articles all get taken down because they're like, I was writing about my sexual issues and now I'm applying for some corporate job through LinkedIn and I need those articles to go bye-bye. So we will be reasonable about it, but that's the best you can do. Then create a relationship with editors. And I think, you know, a mix of being charming and cajoling and pleading and begging and ordering and commanding and screaming and writing poetry and sending, you know, putting an apple on their desk, like the whole thing, you got to get an editor who cares about your work. And we have 15 editors or 12 editors at Elephant. They're caring people. They're also totally overwhelmed. And, you know, so you have to find one who really cares, who will slow down enough to work for your thing.
So what is the benefit to Elephant Journal of having so many pieces per day in terms of it feels like there are a lot that actually don't get read a ton. So what is the goal and strategy behind that? And is that just to kind of touch all kinds of content or to publish more authors, or why are we kind of churning our editors in that way?
Well, number one, articles on Elephant don't have to be edited. So the idea of Elephant is that I'm transforming us from a magazine that publishes, say, 40 articles a quarter to a website, which I've already done, that publishes 40 articles a week, to a social media platform that publishes 40,000 things a day. That's my vision for Elephant, is basically to combine Reddit and journalism and personal storytelling all into one thing. Because basically, if you can't beat them, you not join them, because I don't really want to hang out with them, but you become the monster. You know, if the monster is destroying all of independent media, you have to learn from the monster. So, and that's not an evil thing. Like, that's in Tibetan Buddhism, which I grew up with. The Mahakala, the Dharmapala, the scary neurosis, you transform that and it works to promote enlightened society. So once we're a social media platform, which we're not yet, we're like halfway in between. So it's an awkward time. So it's good to have this discussion. You know, the idea is that anyone can submit to Elephant at any time, but 90% of those articles could be like kittens jumping in puddles. They could be cute GIFs, you know? 10% of those articles might be thoughtful and meaningful. We're like, oh, look at Janis's article. We're going to share that. We are going to put that in the magazine section. But everything gets to live on Elephant, unless it's like hate speech and stuff. We're going to have moderators and, you know, drive that.
So what is the difference these days in your viewpoint between Grassroots and the magazine?
Magazine is meant to be sort of like for quality favorite pieces by editors. Right now, it's sort of for anything.
And how many of those are actually getting published every day?
How many of the magazine? Magazine is published, I think. Everything in the magazine is like been moved to the magazine manually by a editor.
So how many of those pieces are actually getting put up per week?
Oh, you mean shared?
How many pieces are getting edited by the editors every week?
I don't know. Yet another number I don't know. But it's probably like, we probably put up like, I don't know, at most 20 articles a day, I would guess, at most. And we share everything. I mean, everything gets shared that we put up. If they don't get shared, why the F are we putting all this time and love into it? So we're aligned. Our interests, if it's a helpful article and we've, you know, blessed it through the editing process, we want people to read it. Even if we disagree with it, like we're down to share an article that we disagree with.
What is the criteria for that? And are the editors trying to remain objective? Is it mission-based? Is it based on what they feel people should read? Is it how are we choosing what actually goes through editorial versus what stays in Grassroots?
That's completely up to the editors. So I don't micromanage that kind of stuff. But basically, if the editor sees that there's a voice, number one, if it's people like you, if it's recurring writers, we generally know you, we trust you, you're going up.
Yeah.
Anything you write will go up, basically. Some of it will do well, some of it won't, most of it won't, some of it will do okay. But a lot of them do okay, like even 1,000 readers. And I'm always like, yo, writers, you got to lower your bar for expectations. Like Peggy Markell, the friend who I mentioned, she's a world famous chef, slow food person. She's been doing it for like 40 years, 30 years. She's amazing. And she has like 4,000 followers on Instagram, and she obsesses over it. Every week she messages me like, how do I get more followers? I'm like, right on Elephant, 10% of them, 1%, whatever, will click through to your profile and love you. And her photos are unbelievable. At Peggy Markell, folks. Go to Instagram, go to Facebook Zuckerberg's Instagram. But if you have 4,000 followers on Instagram, you're going to get 40 likes on any post. What, 4 of those 40 likes will actually read an article length caption. And by the way, captions can't even be article length on Instagram. And there is 0 link unless you have more than 10,000 followers or people bother to go to your link in bio. And as someone who's in this business, not many people go to link in bio. No one will go to your website and in Peggy's case, join one of your journeys around the world. So I'm always like, man, if you get 40 readers on Elephant, that's as many as you got on Instagram with 40 likes. And yet we're also sharing you. So we're sharing you outside of your own choir of fans you may have on any other site. So while it may not feel like, oh, Instagram people think of as huge, but again, you're getting so little from it. Elephant people view as puny, but you're getting so much from it. That's kind of the conundrum we're in, It's sort of like, I feel like Elephant is like being on city council. People hate you because you're messing with the zoning for their backyard. They hate you as much as they hate any congressperson or senator or president because you're messing with their backyard, their zoning, their town, but they don't respect you. At least like people who hate AOC are like, well, she's a congressperson. She's kind of a big deal. Like, I know she's a big deal, even if I hate her, but no one respects Elephant. So we get kind of like the hate and the disrespect, but we don't get, it's fine. It's like cry me a river, but it's just frustrating because if we had thousands of writers say, you know what, I'll still post on Instagram, but maybe I'll start putting my articles on Elephant first, sharing with my community. Maybe I'll only have 40 readers. In 3 months being consistent, I'll have 400 readers. In a year, I'll have 1,200 readers. 5% of those people click through to my whatever that I'm trying to promote, my right livelihood. That would benefit everyone. Every single writer at Elephant benefits every other writer.
Molly just popped in to say in the last week, we've published 120 articles.
So I guess 20 a day. So there we go.
Molly.
Thank you, Molly. So yeah, Molly is like God. Wherever you are, Molly will.
She knows all the things. Yeah. So finally, I think you touched on something there that a lot of writers feel inside their soul, like in terms of this lack of fairness, or that we're giving content to elephants and getting nothing back. So can you just shed some light? You referenced it earlier, but just in terms of the revenue sources and the money and kind of how all of that works so that we can feel comfortable contributing to Elephant and knowing that, this is part of the ecosystem, not some sort of expectation of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I feel 2 ways about that question. One, if it's genuinely curious, I totally welcome that question. I'm happy to discuss. But if that question is coming from a point of resentment or like, as I would term it, privilege, I would honestly say F off. Not to you, but from others, I would say go to hell, like enjoy it. Like, please blog elsewhere. Elephant, is such a privilege. Every writer at Elephant gets free editing services available to them if their article is good enough. Does Instagram do that?
Not last time I checked. I posted this morning and they didn't do anything. So
yeah. Does Facebook do that?
No, I didn't have Kate Force on Facebook this morning.
Yeah.
No.
Does Twitter do that? Does
No.
Medium do that? They might have volunteer editors, but
Medium does have editors.
paid editors?
I believe so.
Okay. I don't know much about the Medium model, but I would be pretty surprised if there's like, you know, the same proportion, like the student teacher ratio at Medium. I know there's different forums within Medium, and God bless them, but guess who financially backs Medium? Guess who is sitting in his villa, you know, one of his 5 villas, you know, with his billions of dollars? One of the founders of Twitter is big tech. And I welcome it's not a competition. I think Medium should succeed. I think it should be ethical. I think it should grow. I think it should support writers. God bless. It's fine. But we are not that. I grew, you know, again, 10 years into running Elephant, my debit card was bouncing, you know?
I own a business. I do know, actually.
Yeah, 6 years in, my house is in foreclosure. I mean, you know, it's not about me, but it is about like anything we make, we pay our staff and our writers, and we want to pay much more. So I would say, you're not giving your content to Elephant. You own it. You are allowing us to give you a free service of editing, which is also not free. You're earning it in some way, but you're not getting that from Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Medium. I'd love to know more. I doubt everyone writing on Medium has a dedicated editor or two, but I'm open to hearing more about that. And then we share. We also have a huge platform. And again, I understand some Medium has some newsletter and whatever, but I doubt Medium all day long. We have readership shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all Christmas, all Thanksgiving, all year long, that are sharing articles all day long, all night long. We have people in every time zone across the planet sharing articles. And new articles generally do a little bit better than old articles. So you may see old hits recirculating again and again, but we focus most, and we're fine with that, because old hits, if they're mission aligned, God bless them. Like I just shared like a 10-year-old blog, The Buddhist Rule About Worrying, because it's a fundamental lesson in Buddhism. And I'm going to share that until I die. But new articles do a little bit better. So our priority is to share new articles. If every new article did well, we would probably never share old articles, you know? So yeah, we bring a lot to the table, but we have been effed by the Facebook algorithm, by Instagram, and by the fact that it's sort of like, you know, you're trying to start a revolution or a movement and 10 people come with you, you know? You're like Bernie Sanders back in the 80s. You're like, this system's effed up. And people are like, you're a whack job, go do your thing. And then he wins like the mayoral race on his like 3rd campaign, because he ran for governor first or something. And then he won it by 4 votes. And then, you know, suddenly 30 years later of him ranting, you know, people think he's a big deal, because he is a big deal, because he's speaking his voice and he's caring. And that's, I think, analogous to Elephant. We're here for the long haul. We've been here 18 years. If people want to jump aboard and help this revolution, peaceful revolution, you know, forward, fantastic. If you don't, totally welcome you to go elsewhere, not out of hard feelings, like genuinely, like, please. And if you want to try both, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be, you know, to have a cult, you have to have like a magnanimous, charming leader. I'm not either, you know, and I don't care. I don't really actually want that much attention. Social media is so toxic. As we saw like a couple months ago or a month ago, you know, Elephant was getting attacked, and then I jumped in, and then suddenly nobody minded Elephant so much. They were busy attacking me. Like, that's better. I would rather be the target, because I'm an idiot in some ways, and I'm a big sweetie in other ways, and I'm just trying, like all of us are. And I don't care. People don't need loyalty. They don't need it. It's not a cult. You can write for Medium, you can write for Elephant. A lot of our writers do. But I would say ethically, I would never write for Medium. I would never write for Facebook or Instagram or Twitter first. I would use all of them. That's what we teach in the academy, to try to get our writing across. But I would either write for my own website or for an independent, ethically driven website. And ethic doesn't mean perfect. Elephant has never been perfect, as you know, but we try. We try. I think we perfectly try, and we can always try more.
Okay, well, thanks for answering my questions. I
Oh,
think that what I'm really taking
right.
away is that we as writers have ways that we can actually help ourselves promote our own work. We can have websites, we can share things, we can tag Elephant, we can make sure that we're going onto those Facebook pages and capturing screenshots and resharing those, and we can be reading the newsletter, and at the end of it really focus on speaking to that core audience with mission driven pieces from the heart, from that vulnerability, and just be consistent with it.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm sorry I knew almost nothing. We will find out some answers to questions. And, you know, just last week, we surfaced a new thing we've created, which is like elephant quotes, or you may have noticed them, elephant. We might call them cards. And the idea, they're not even done yet. The idea is they're this beautiful like card. Like the idea kind of came from these Buddhist cards I have everywhere, which are, you know, they have commentary. So the idea is sort of like, it would be a quote, and then the article would be on the back. So the quote, and it's some quote, and it's Janis, and then the link is in it. So if you click the quote, the link is in it, or the link is also tagged, hyperlinked, and then your bio photo, which is also clickable on our website, and then share buttons. So the entire thing is like this beautiful quote, and we make those custom for writers, but you can also share them to Twitter. You can also share those to Instagram. And obviously the things won't be as clickable, but in Twitter, the link would go with it. So we're really trying to, you know, make different ways for people to get out there.
And that's what I personally want, because it's, you know, I'm writing my pieces. And again, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, it's not of benefit. So
Yeah.
my entire goal is to get that voice heard, to get that vulnerability heard, to get that work out there to the world where it actually can be of benefit. So
Yeah.
thank you for having this dialogue to see how I can help myself, and hopefully some other writers get something out of this as well.
Yeah. And I don't want to be so rude as to like get into ages and things, but I'm 46. Back in the 90s, I just want to remind folks who are like have come of age in the social media age, writers have always struggled. Back in the 90s, you couldn't find an agent unless you had family or professional connections, and LinkedIn didn't exist. You know, you couldn't really self-publish and distribute. There was no social media. How are you going to share it? So writers are always going to be frustrated and always going to struggle. But right now, you can share your stuff consistently, put it into a book form, publish it, hopefully environmentally responsibly, distribute it. Even if you only sell 1,000 copies through your social media, that is like pretty cool. You don't need permission from an agent and a publisher. You can just build your own thing. And so it's so much easier than the 90s. I remember being a kid in the 90s and looking up at like the publishing and agent world as like, how do I get there? You know, how? So Elephant is like really a vehicle and a platform for all of us to answer that question of how. And it may not be easy, but writers should expect to sweat. Blood, sweat, and tears. It is a brutal, ink-stained, you know, it may not be inky, the laptop, but it's hard. And it should be kind of hard. It shouldn't be as hard as it is now, but it should be kind of hard because, you know, it forces us to do better and be better, you know, to be of benefit, hopefully.
Hey Molly, now how much of Elephant Journal's revenues are coming from the Academy?
I can say is probably about 10% of the 100%. So it's 40% subscription, 40% sales, 10% Academy. Molly, you're welcome to say anything more detailed or accurate.
No, I'd say it's between 10 and 15%. Like we have a stretch goal. We wouldn't, we wouldn't make the final 20%. So we're getting there though.
And even there's bad news. Is only possibly 15% because the shop has collapsed because we have no staff on the shop for like 3 years. The shop is where my book is. We used to have hats, t-shirts, mugs, you know. We had all kinds of cool things and people loved them. And 1.0% or whatever would buy something if they loved elephant. But now if you go to the shop, there's like nothing in it and no one at home. So the shop used to be like a healthy 10%. Now it's 5%. So it's a little bit like, you know, I was trying to make an analogy, but I said the city council thing. It's a little bit like how people love to get obsessed and have drama around their local co-op, but then they don't think about Whole Foods or Prime because they're just cynical. They don't expect Bezos and Prime and Whole Foods to be kind or beautiful or responsible, but they want their co-op or their local community spot to be perfect. And oh my God, the more you get involved in community, the more messy it is. Every Buddhist place I ever lived, you're like, oh my God, I'm living around 100 like total weirdos, like, you know, who are just trying to be human every day. And they're good people, but they're like, what a odd, you know, it's like that Alaskan sitcom in the, whenever that was, 90s or something. It's just a bunch of weirdos. And that's what elephant is.
Thank you for that.
That's Molly. So for a publication that's actually not driven by numbers and not driven by demographics, I find it interesting that we have numbers around the writers. So we've got our top 100 contributor lists. We've got our ecosystem, which is deciding who wins.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? If we don't care about the numbers anywhere else, why do we care about who?
I love that answer. I mean, I told you about thinking of the ecosystem 10 years ago, but Molly, do you want to answer that? Or I can go
Why
for
don't you take it and I'll tack on to the end if I...
So basically we have paid writers for a long time. And we used to pay writers based on, Molly, do you even remember? Like based on views, which is popularity. And I don't even know what. So basically I was like, that's effed up. Like, I don't care. If I put up a photo, like I had a blog many years ago about, here's a photo of Miley Cyrus doing whatever, not a Rajasana and yoga. That got a lot of clicks because people are like horny and weirdos. And some people care about yoga and they're like, oh, pop culture and yoga intersect. But, you know, overall, it was probably a bunch of like people getting into the 12-year-old boy state of mind. And should that be the most popular article? And, you know, most of those articles, I tried to put quality content. This could be a gateway to someone discovering yoga or health, as it was for Miley when she got into yoga. That was a big step out of her anorexia or her issues, you know? So anyway, the ecosystem was basically, my idea was like elevator pitch. Like, Janis, you and I are in an elevator and we're going from the 5th floor to the 1st floor in some little rinky-dink hotel in Wyoming. And you say, how do I win the ecosystem? How do I get paid as a writer on Elephant? That's the basic question. I say, well, it's basically 10% popularity, 10% editor's pick, which is like, editor's picks are meant to represent, like, you wrote about composting. It's a really quality, beautiful article, but no one cares. You get an editor's pick. We've reduced the power of the editor's pick because David and others were critical of that. So now it's 7%. So basically it's like 12% popularity, 7% editor's pick, 12% shares. You know, if a reader decides to share an article, that says a lot. 12% comments. If readers disagree with an article or agree with an article or interact with it, hey, I did that recipe. What do you do with the potatoes? That's meaningful. So basically, yeah, we do quantify it, but it's not because we're like number obsessed. It's because we automated the system because at the end of the day, Janis, you don't want Waylon or any Wizard of Oz person behind the curtain saying, you win. That's effed up. What you want is, hey, I was popular, I was quality, I was shared, I had comments, and whatever subscriber love, it was a meaningful path of people reading several articles, I get paid. So we want to put some sense of control, not a false sense, because it's not a direct control on the levers like you talked about. You can't operate subscriber love, but if you write something meaningful and kind of clicky, not clickbaity, but like people will read it, treat it in the forest falls and someone reads it, you should be rewarded for that over time. Molly, what's your answer to that?
No, I love that. That's like essentially what I was going to say, is that it was a way of making sure that just the most popular articles weren't always winning. It was the same people were winning over and over and over again, and that wasn't the view of the mission and why we wanted to be rewarding writers. And then to bring it, full circle with me and to go, all academy on it. I like to compare it to gamification. Like for me, writers can be really competitive with either themselves or other writers. So when I'm talking about the ecosystem, I'm like, hey, like this is a way to look at how you're doing, but it's a way to look at how other people are doing. Like it's a system of self-competition and competition among others to, I don't want to say validate your writing, but to help your writing. Like it helps. I know I'm a person where when I look and see what I'm doing and how well it's doing, I want to do better, and I want to know why it's doing better. And this tells me why.
Yeah, like this morning, I referred to my article that has 26 readers on it. I chose a title that had to do with veganism. And when I thought about it afterward, and this could be incorrect, all writers do this. You're like, why did my article fail? Was it the title? Should the title have been? So I was like, maybe the title should have been about the dog abuse that I'm showing in the blog instead, because that went viral. This moment where this police officer is abusing his dog is infuriating and heartbreaking, and it went super viral. But I chose to make the title about, well, all of us are abusing animals. So if you're horrified by that video, but your daily plate includes dairy or meat, you're doing far worse. So just good to consider, not as a judgment of the reader, but anyway, I'm getting too into it, but as a measure of like, if you have empathy for that dog, but not for the cow on your plate or the veal that was taken away because of your milk, maybe just look at that and say, could my heart expand from where it is? Right now, my heart includes dogs, but it doesn't include any animals I don't see suffering.
So what's up with the top 100 contributor list? Why do we have that?
Frankly, I'd be curious why you wouldn't like that. I like the more the merrier, that kind of stuff. I love it.
The question wasn't whether I like it or not. I'm interested after having this conversation because it's clearly not a numbers driven organization. Why we see those numbers?
We are numbers driven in the sense that numbers pay for Molly to pay her rent or whatever. So, she's a trustafarian and drives a Maserati, but the money pads her. It gives her excuse to be like a superhero by night. She can say, I have a job by day. Did that make sense? Like you're Bruce Wayne. But no, we are numbers. We're not numbers driven, number one, but numbers matter. So I think the top 100 contributors list, which was, I don't think my idea, but I'm supportive of it, was basically another gateway. So Janis, what number are you?
I am currently 26. Although the numbers are out of order. And so support needs to fix those.
So yeah, we're so rinky dinky, but basically it's meant to be another way to enter for readers to enter into Elephant and see the consistent quality writers. So if you're in that top 100 list, it's less a measurement of like how good you are, but more a measurement of like you've been consistent and who are the top writers? And frankly, I never find that page. I don't even know where that list is. I don't know where that list is, but I do see that like it says Jan Dolk. I just shared her thing on Instagram today. Says number whatever she is, 18 or something. So probably if you click that number, that goes to the thing. But
yes,
it's just a way for people to find quality long-term writers, because anyone can come in, write a flash in the pan, amazing article, and then leave. But, we do have a stable of long-term writers who are pretty devoted to their craft and to the elephant community. So it's a way to kind of show a menu of them to new readers. And we should probably find ways to highlight it more, because I never click into it.
Ironically, I just got a message from someone today who was so excited because she's like, I just broke through. I'm now like number 67. I've never made the list before.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we took Elephant staff off of it, which is kind of sad because I also I would get more motivated to write if I were on it, but we basically were like, you know, we can't win the ecosystem. That's crazy. And we shouldn't probably be hogging the.
Oh, the ecosystem, but you're on the contributor list.
Oh, I am.
You are.
Well, I have an unfair advantage.
You're number one, Waylon.
Oh, well, because I've written 50,000 articles over 12 years. So
actually, that is a question. Why are the editors on that list?
I don't know. I think probably that was my decision, that part, because I probably was like, I want editors encouraged to write, because too often, like Molly probably hasn't written for.
I haven't written in a while, no. I'm guilty of that.
Like what happens, which is really sad, like let's say we managed to hire you, you would stop writing because you would edit, you would share, you would be exhausted, you'd want to hang out with your family, you'd stop writing. It just always happens. So I think I wanted to really encourage editors to get a little bit competitive. You know?
My son's over here being like, no, we don't want to hang out.
Yeah. Well, he may not want to hang out with you because you're the mom.
That's pretty much right.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I probably did want that, but I hopefully there's like an X or an asterisk by the staff to denote that, like, you know, if Molly writes an article, she's getting paid to write that article, you know, paid not hourly, but salary. So it's different than the writers. So it's kind of unfair to compare him to the writers. But yeah, I probably wanted him on the list.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
I was also curious. I mean, there isn't anywhere on Elephant, whether you want this or not, it's just fact, it's not there. There's nothing to kind of separate out who went through the academy or who mentored or who actually.
It's coming.
Oh,
we are currently working on it. It is in the works.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on it as we speak.
Well, and my whole goal, or our whole goal, is I think we already had it, but maybe it's not there because I have never looked at it, but the top 100 contributors list, you should be able to click staff, you know, editors. You should be able to click get rid of staff and editors. I just want to look at writers. You should have 18, you know, who's the top, like I'm number one lifetime, but I'm probably not number one for the last year. No way. I might be still top 20 because
you're right though. There are people on that list who actually haven't contributed for quite some time, just because at one point they were quite prolific.
I wanted that. I wanted some sense of like, oh wow, we've been around for online for 12 years or something now. Like,
yeah,
we've had such amazing writers come and go over the years, and I liked some of that history, because too often it's like 10 or 20 writers all like fighting over the ecosystem or something. You're like, you know, there were other amazing writers, and readers should read those.
That's why I like when you share the older pieces on the Facebook pages, because we get to see some of the writers who actually came before us. I love that we are going to call out the Academy graduates. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to have all kinds of flair. So like really for anything we can think of, like we already have an editor's pick flair, but we want all kinds of different details there, because it's interesting and it's community. And, you know, hopefully soon we'll have ways for people to message each other and share playlists of articles. Like I went through dealing with an obnoxious son during the pandemic. You know, here's my 10 articles on parenting advice, and other parents could love that playlist. So there could be a top family playlist of helpful articles around depression, or, you know, dealing with
I've noticed those that are sponsored, and those are great because you open up one portal and then out come different things about body image, sponsored by Noom or what have you.
Women this month.
What's that?
This month is the Ode to Women article, like with all the roundup.
Yeah, I love the roundups.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's something that has confused me a little bit, is just that there isn't. So if a new artist, we're gonna talk a few years back, but if a new artist gets signed by a record label and has a hit, then there is some prioritization of helping nurture and foster that talent. The record company sends them on tour. The record company make sure that they send out their next single. And that piece to me has felt a little bit missing for Elephant in terms of nurturing the writing talent.
Yeah, my excuse for everything is like we are understaffed and overwhelmed, but like anything that you want or writers want that's reasonable or helpful or readers want, we want to do it. We're just slow as molasses going uphill in a blizzard, you know? because we have one developer. So, you know, the more people subscribe, the more people write, the more people read. Maybe someday we could hire 2 developers and 2 project managers for each developer, and then we could move twice as fast. But yeah, I mean,
my questions really are about, because if there's no money, then
no.
you know, we're not going to get paid. No one's going to read the stuff, and then some of these utopian visions can never come into play because
well, and it's not even utopian. It's just caring. It's just caring. Like, we don't think we're going to create a perfect world. We just think we could create a world with more awareness and more education and more compassion. You know, that's it. Like, it'll still be totally full of drama and, you know, burnt toast. But
I mean, I'd love to see Academy grads get tagged. I'd love to see Academy mentors get tagged. I'd love to see there's contributors, and Carrie is one of them, who was on our call last month. She's contributed for 7 years. I mean, that's amazing, right? So can we actually honor some people like that who have actually stuck it out and contributed their voice for years on end? I mean, I don't even know how to actually find her back library of articles.
You just click on any author account, you see every article. And that author account is linked in the bio from any article.
It is, but not real. It's not that functional in the app. You can only see a short list. So if I wanted to go back and see her
well, the app again was like, for us, was like such a huge accomplishment. And let me tell you, it was probably the lowest budgeted app ever. You know? Yep. So, and it's beautiful. We're proud of it. But yeah, the functionality is always improving. We improve everything every month. Like, we're working round the clock.
Maybe this exists already, but it's because I'm using the app. And so it's possible, I don't know. But I would love if somewhere you could click on my name and it would just pull up just the ecosystem winning articles and just those editors.
Like top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I'll show this video to Brian, who's our project manager guy, who's in charge of kind of with me and, you know, of identifying priorities. But basically, like, I will go to him all fired up, like, we have to have this. Why is this not working? And he'll be like, dude, get in line. Like, literally no respect. We are so overwhelmed with basic things. You know, it's sort of like we're in this like old boat and is leaking and we're just trying to stay afloat. And then people are like, totally understandably, are like, yo, there's maggots in the food. We're like, yo, we're trying to not drown tonight.
I get that.
So
yeah, I actually did contact support twice back to ask, because the top 100 contributor list is actually out of order. Like, by points, I'm lower than I should be. And like, it doesn't matter, except it's wrong.
It does matter. And we do care. It's just, we are, you know, my fantasy, going back to that Bernie Sanders thing, is like, if 20,000 people saw this video and said, you know what? Independent media is dying. Why don't we change that? Why don't I contribute to Elephant once every other day, and I'll post Instagram once a week instead, or Facebook once a month, or, you know, do a little less? Because there's nothing that, you know, we're not financially driven, but there's nothing that money wouldn't fix here, because our ethics have been around for 18 years. I had offers to buy Elephant when it was a magazine for a lot of money when I was in foreclosure, and I said no. So I was tested then, and I kept going. I was like, no way. I'm not going to work with owners who have different priorities. I'm not. Because it's no fun. Like, why would you wake up in the morning to work for something you didn't believe in? So
do you think that readers have loyalty to certain writers? I mean, obviously there's a follow button.
For sure.
So is there something that could be done to nurture the writers a little bit more, in terms of, I don't know what I'm even thinking, so I'm just saying stuff, but
well, the problem with the follow button right now is, when I follow you, I will then get notifications on the website if I'm logged in, or on the app.
Yeah.
So that's cool, but there's a lot of notifications. And then
you used to actually send out an email when
we do. We send out an email, but guess what percentage of people open up that email? very small.
Like quite low.
Yeah. So, you know, is very hard to reach. This is why it's like out of one side of the mouth, unhappy writers might say, you're doing clickbait. And out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying, and I'm not saying this about you, at the other side of their mouth, they're saying, we don't get any reads, you don't share us. And you're like, make up your mind. We're either trying too hard and we're desperate, or we're not trying at all. We try consistently on every article. And yeah, some editors are better at sharing than others.
They are.
Totally. And I encourage consistent writers to find an editor who they work well with. Because one editor will be bad for one writer and great for another writer, because they connect with that. If there's an editor who loves you or connects with you, they will work harder for you. It's just human nature.
Of course.
And that's why the ecosystem, we try to make it not human nature. We try to make it consistent with the numbers.
Which I get that. It's very hard to do. But
and I want to shout out to what Molly said, like literally we're even using our sponsors to pay for. So we created this beautiful menu of, you know, for Women's Month and Day and feminism. Instead of highlighting the advertiser, we said, advertiser, why don't you sponsor this menu of articles, past and present? And
I like those.
Yeah, even there, we're using it to create kind of a little internal magazine. But we're not, you know, we're not virtuous or whatever. We're just trying to do something genuine. And I think people are so cynical and speedy that doesn't really show up. But, you know, we also get a ton of love. I think when I look at you, I'm really thinking about the brouhaha of last month, which was a lot to unpack, and there's genuine stuff, but there's also amazing love for Elephant, and that keeps all of us going, and in the Academy.
You have some writers that are consistently contributing 2-3 pieces a week that actually don't really get read. They have very low.
Yeah.
Why are you choosing to dedicate editorial resources to that and to those people?
I don't know. I think you'd have to ask the editors, but my answer, because I don't actually tell the editors what to do particularly, I kind of generally will guide a little bit, but it's like, I'm not in charge. There's 2 co-managing editors, or 3 now. Kate is the rookie on the team, like in a police sitcom. She's like the new rookie, the new hot, arrogant rookie. By hot, I mean arrogant and whatever. And then there's the 2 veterans. They're grizzled and cynical. And it's Nicole and Kat. And but basically I would say, you know, if Jan Dolk is putting up like 30 vegan recipes and no one's reading them, fuck it. Like, we will put time into it if it's quality.
Yeah.
And if it's not quality and no one's reading it, yeah, I'd be like, why the fuck are you editing all this stuff, editors? But if it's quality and no one's reading it, fuck it. Like, we need to get out of the silos that Facebook has put us in. That's why I very stubbornly will put up articles about things, and I just let go. I just like.
I'm not actually talking about Jan. Her stuff is cute and durable and vegan.
Oh, I'm not implying that you were talking about Jan, but I just know she's complained about that in the past. Like, hey, no one's reading my damn articles. Why?
So what happened to the? I mean, there used to be you had to have 500 page views in order to get published again. My question is actually driven by.
That was my rule. I love that rule, but it basically was awful for wallflowers. So a lot of people would like wallflower at the student dance, and then they'd go out for one dance. Finally, and it would take everything they had, and they'd get 100 readers, and then they'd never write again because they weren't allowed to. So we basically lowered it. I think there's still a minimum. It's like 100 or 200, but we lowered the bar because a lot of people weren't getting to write again. And because even if you're sharing to your aunt and your 2 uncles and your 5 friends in the middle of somewhere, nowhere, and you know, that's still a new community for Elephant, and it benefits everyone a little bit. The long tail notion, as you may remember.
I get that. I mean, that's your business decision, obviously, but it just seems to me like where I struggle is when I hear stories about how busy and pulled the editors are, and it does feel that way sometimes.
Yeah. But it's a little bit like going into
people who never graduated from the Academy, who are churning out these pieces.
Right.
2 or 3 of them a week have 200 reads on them. Like, why did you spend $20 on that piece or $60 on that writer? So that's
Well, we're frustrated too, but
for a writer
that damned. Sorry.
Oh, that's just very like there's stuff.
Will, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like any overstretched parent, if the public was invited to like mind their business, which they're not, they would come into the house and they'd be like, why are you choosing to surf on your phone for an hour when there's like dust bunnies in the corner of every room in the house? And the parent would be like, you know what? Number one, fuck off.
Oh, totally.
Number two, none of your business. Number three, go to hell. Number four, I'm looking at like healthy recipes on Instagram half the time. Number five, the bullshit I'm looking on Instagram is my meditation. And number six, you're probably a little bit right. And God damn it, I need to clean my house and stop looking at Meghan Markle and, Prince Harry stuff. But, we are overextended. And, my fantasy is a very boring one, is to hire more editors. We just hired 3 in the last month, but we lost 1. And then we train them for 2 months, which is expensive. And then an editor, the 3 editors training the 3 new editors aren't editing. So then in 3 months' time, we'll have more help. But for the next 3 months, we're effed. And it's hard. It's such a boring, hard business. And if people want us to quit, keep writing on Instagram and sharing on it. Like if you want Elephant to go away, don't read Elephant and don't share Elephant.
No.
I'm not saying you.
No, that's obviously not. It's actually, I think that question is driven by, I want to understand too, because there's things that I hear said or things that don't make sense, but
Well, yeah, I mean, the basic decision was made by 2 things. One, the wallflower principle was often new writers are super awkward and will never write again if they're not allowed to, if they only get to like 100 or 200. And part of our mission is like, anyone's an artist, anyone's a writer, anyone has a voice. You may not be a good writer, but we have free editing here for you. And then number 2, it was driven by, we looked at like subscriptions for articles that had, say, less than 500 readers. And even though they were basically useless and didn't pay for themselves, there was enough there that we were like, you know what? If they can go on to some success over time with a caring editor, which is key, then it's probably worth it, both to our mission and financially. So it's probably similar to like a cafe being like, well, we could put a table in the back of the cafe in the alley by the dumpster and it's stinky and it's in the shade. No one really it doesn't make sense, but if even 1 or 2 people sit there over a month, it's probably worth it. I love that. Well, Janis, you've been amazing. Thank you for your time. And, a final note, I would just say, to remind you, like you're saying, where's the value? I would just say, again, people write on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter for free, for exposure, exposure. But, Twitter and Facebook, etc., are not actually exposing you. They are not promoting you. You get lost in the hashtags, you get lost, you only reach whoever you reach, which is generally the fans you've worked your butt off to accumulate. And we do expose you and we do share you and we're
I agree.
Dedicated to it, but it's hard. Even when we were rocking, it was hard. And now it's like really hard. So.
Well, that's what you basically told me today. Which is good to know.
Ecosystem, everyone will be able to, like any energy we get into the ecosystem will stay and circulate and it'll get bigger and more powerful. My fantasy again is for that to just explode at some point, like a supernova, but of when I watch movies and it's the Universal logo and it shows the light shining out of every corner of the globe as it revolves, that's my fantasy for Elephant. My basic approach, which has always been the same for better and worse, is to just work my ass off, have staff who I love and who, is super caring and kind, and just keep plowing forward. And, as we gather power, we've had 3 years of basically break even, small losses or small gain. And this is the toughest time anywhere. And again, 95% of our competitors are gone. So, or wildly unethical. Like we have competitors who are doing like stuff we would never do financially. and in terms of using people's data and sponsors and stuff. And every year as we survive, we're so much closer to adding the various functions you're asking for. Like, we've surfaced probably, Molly, like 500 new functions over the last 3 years. And when we can get to the point where we finally connect the last pipes of the ecosystem and the water starts flowing and not leaking out, watch out, world, because we actually, I think, just like we saw with Clubhouse, suddenly everyone's going to be like, oh, have you tried the new Elephant Journal app? And a couple people be like, yo, it's not new, it's been around. People will be like, whatever. It's brand new. And did you know you can just post something on it? You can get paid. You can share with millions. You don't even need a huge following. If you're consistent, then you get X and Y. Greta Thunberg and 18 other people who are blogging on it and doing videos and doing, we'll have all the stories, we'll have all the social media functions, but it'll all be ethically run in the way that, Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or WhatsApp make their rules based on quarterly returns. We will make our rules based on ethics. And the reason why I can say that with a straight face is I own 100% of it. If I'd even given up 10%, then I don't have a say. That's very quickly
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I can make dumb decisions from now until the end of time based on ethics instead of money. And long term, that means people have faith and stick around. And if we look at people, it is sad to me when people leave, but I also am like, you know what? You have that choice and that's fine. I don't control you.
Not everything is for everyone. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Janis, so much.